Hi, readers. Welcome back to Goddess Garden Book Chat. I'm your host, 11 Goddess, and I have a very exciting audio drama presented by Audible Originals. If you have an Audible membership, this book should be available to you. What we're talking about is a gripping, high concept audio drama that dares to ask the question. I think a lot of us in the back of our minds have asked this question. What if reparations worked? What if a black utopia wasn't a theory, it was a country? The novel is called Kingsland. It's a collaborative Audible original from Dwayne Alexander Smith, Kevin Hart, Charlemagne the God, and SBH Martinez. Johnny's, I hope I'm saying the name correctly, Johnny's Abbott Pratt, Jabari Banks, Jason George, Joe Morton, Dion Graham, and more. This is a huge collaborative effort. I would love to have, as an Audible original, the planning of even making this project. That would be exciting to listen to. Um, and if you're thinking that it's just another slick thriller, that's not the case at all. It's a very interesting concept and it's taken very seriously. We'll talk more about it when I get to my synopsis, but I just want to share with you this book has such an original approach to a long thought idea. I'm glad Kevin Hart and the rest of the crew, I use his name because he's probably one of the most notable people. I'm glad they picked it up and turned it into a story. So let's get into it.
This episodic story opens with Jameson Wright, a former FBI profiler brought to Kingsland just days before the nation celebrates its 10th anniversary. He's played with commanding depth by Winston Duke. Jameson isn't just investigating a crime. He's walking into a nation built on black excellence, wealth, surveillance, and secrets. At his side is his wife, Roxanne, voiced by Yara Martinez, who brings warmth and quiet conflict as she tries to adjust to this bold new world for the sake of their family. But what starts as an optimistic relocation becomes a test of moral compass, loyalty, and truth. Quinn Sinclair, portrayed by Jonice Abbott Pratt, is the brilliant and eager Kingsland police detective paired with Jameson. She is confident, idealistic, and symbolic of the homegrown generation who know only Kingsland as their reality. And then there are the officials and operatives, some voiced by Joe Morton and Jason George, who give us a glimpse into the political web behind this so-called paradise. Now, Kingsland the country, it's a floating, sovereign black nation off the coast of the United States, funded by billionaire capital, made possible by the U.S. Reparations Act, and run with total surveillance. It promises wealth, safety, and pride. Kingsland doesn't just call itself the safest country in the world, it delivers, at least on paper. Crime is non-existent. Cameras are everywhere. And yet, someone is killing white visitors. And that's where this story flips. On the surface, Kingsland is a dream. It's a sanctuary where black identity is celebrated, protected, and advanced. A nation where economic power is not aspirational. It's foundational. There's no street crime, no guns, no gangs. The community thrives on intelligence, innovation, and mutual respect. It's polished, pristine, high-tech, and tightly controlled. But as Jameson soon learns, perfection is a performance. Because underneath this utopia is a surveillance state, one that watches, tracks, and manipulates. Kingsland promises freedom from oppression. But what happens when you trade that oppression for control, master safety? Jameson, Quinn, and Roxanne find themselves navigating a place that might look like paradise, but feels more like a digital prison the deeper they go. The serial murders of white guests don't just threaten Kingsland's spotless image, they pull at the seams of its foundation. Why would someone risk everything to kill outsiders? Why now? And why can't a country with eyes everywhere stop a killer hiding in plain sight? What unfolds is a high stakes murder mystery interwoven with deep questions about power, identity, and the price of freedom. It's not just a who done it, it's a where do we go from here? And I have to talk about the cast. Winston Duke brings gravitas to Jameson's conflict. He is a man torn between duty and discovery. Yara Martinez gives Roxanne a layered presence, skeptical but determined to make it work. Johnny's Abbott Pratt's Quinn is a standout, vulnerable and fierce, a reflection of the younger Kingsland generation raised in the shadows of cameras and promises. Joe Morton, always commanding, represents the establishment. His voice alone tells you he's hiding something behind the words. And the entire sound design, it's immersive. You don't listen to Kingsland, you live inside it. Here's what I love about this drama. It doesn't handhold. It lets you wrestle. It forces you to ask, what does safety cost? What happens when utopia is curated and patrolled? When you build a nation to escape racism, do you risk creating your own version of systemic power? The allure of Kingsland is magnetic, a homeland built for us, by us, free from the weight of white supremacy. But the reality is more complex. Behind the slick veneer are fractures, political manipulation, private elites shaping policy, and citizens living under constant surveillance in exchange for peace. GGBC found this story thought-provoking, especially as it introduces the concept of prejudice directed back toward whites. Not as a simplification, but as a reflection of deep trauma and control. Other listeners highlighted the world building as movie-like, and they're not wrong. This is 9 episodes of high-octane drama anchored in one chilling question. Can a nation be built on pain without repeating it? Jameson's journey is ours. We want to believe in a better world. We want to trust in the future. But when the truth starts to rot from the inside, who do we become to survive? Kingsland isn't just fiction. It's a conversation. It's a mirror. It's a warning. And for us here in the Goddess Garden Book Chat, it's an absolute must-listen. So, let me ask you, would you move to Kingsland? Could you live in a place where your safety is guaranteed, if your freedom is filtered? Is utopia still utopia when it watches you sleep? That's it for today's deep dive. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss our next review. And remember, this space is for the curious, the critical, and the courageous.
I think it's an interesting question that we're left with by the chat squad. If utopia existed, would you want to live there? And it doesn't matter what your definition of utopia is. For the purposes of this novel, it's Kingsland. And it makes sense that reparations would lead to the separation of generational trauma. You would try to build a place where you think you can create something outside of what you've had to endure and live through, what your ancestors endured and lived through. But in order to create that, you also have to combat the human instinct. Now, I shout out to this book because the world building is excellent. It is 9 episodes where you clearly feel like you've entered into something interesting, very modern, very dynamic. You can sense the architecture and the economy in the way that people speak to each other and how they look at a new family entering into Kingsland. That's very important. And as I've laid out before, in the imagery, I hope you caught that. The lead detective is not married to a black woman. And when they agreed to go on this journey, they don't realize, much like what is still a holdover in real life, that racism, that systemic instinct that different means lesser, carries over no matter where you go. It delivers on 2 levels. I will give the book that it's a very good serial killer thriller, serial killer thriller. um, and it's a metaphorical parable. I will say that too. Racial equity, power, identity. Here's something I would have loved. When you imagine in a fiction way building a place like this, I would love for an Audible original or a continuation to explore where it isn't that you're repeating the same mistakes. I would like to see whatever utopia looks like, that it is actually better than what you're leaving behind. Because if you think about it, a police state where every move you make, everything you do is preempted and controlled by the powers that have gained the authority over you, over how you live your life. Because 90% of the people who want to escape that kind of living don't want to enter into it. They don't want to raise their family in it. The interesting thing about Kingsland is everybody's okay with it. They've agreed to live like this. So when you come in as an outsider, there are two glaring truths. This is what you wanted, but is it what you said you wanted? You, I encourage you to enjoy it. I'm not going to go much deeper than that. It has a reality check that I think everybody could use as the moral of the story. Let me leave it there. I hope you'll come back and I hope you'll join me for another exciting book review. But I would love a conversation to kick off about the realities of what utopia really means and what it looks like, and is it sustainable? Until next time, friends, I'll see you in the garden.